I'm not going to be lazy for this part since I prepared a script for this part. The Grim side quest is going to take up the majority of this video, some editing to keep things moving at a decent pace. I'm marking Grim as an interesting bug. He was cursed to use these Halloween-like carnivals to extend his use by eating red flames and have a stranger raise his kid or his reincarnation. Grimchild is sadly a stormtrooper in terms of how well it aims. It's a pretty lackluster charm for something that uses 2 notches. It would be cool if the Grimchild could swipe at enemies or summon fire pillars. Also, its attack should be scaled off of nail damage. In fact, Grimchild would be much better if it had the Primal Aspids try attack volley. Or Team Cherry can just make it so Grimchild costs 1 charm. Anyways, to gather flames you have to fight 3 different variants of Halloweeny enemies. 3 times. The 3 different flame bearers use similar attacks besides the slender kind, using flame pillars. These enemies are kind of annoying since sometimes they hide in walls to evade any nail swipes. Using spells are very effective against them. All of them use a dive attack. However, the speed at which they dive is really fast, and gets much faster depending on the difficulty of the flame bearer. After you beat the first 6 flame bearers, you can fight Grim. The Shaman's Stone charm is very invaluable for these enemies, since they really like to evade. Like the first set of flame bearers really enjoy being hard to actually swipe at, so doing extra damage with your spells is always a good thing. While I was doing the Grim side quest, I was doing a bunch of sidetracking, detouring while doing so it wouldn't get monotonous, just going straight for the flames. And this is where I get one of the nail arts, where you charge your nail up for a bit by just simply pressing the attack button. Like if you're using a Xbox controller, that's X. I'm not sure what it is for like a keyboard, but this platforming section was pretty much the bane of my existence for when I was a noob. Like I saw this and was like, I think I have everything I need to do this section, and then I kept on dying to it, but now I can do it with ease since I managed to get through the Path of Pain. Like, the platforming in this game is more slow and methodical compared to other games like Super Meat Boy, where it's like you only have 1 chance and if you die, you're dead. Like, you have a lot of chances in Hollow Knight platforming compared to the latter. I remember this one guy from the Hollow Knight Discord mentioning how it was like this other game. Forgot what he was talking about, sadly. But he was like, oh, it's slow and steady. Like, we were talking about the Path of Pain, and he was like, this isn't like Super Meat Boy, this is like something else. But we meet Shio, the nail master who decided to become an artist. Because why not? It's like, oh, wielding a nail is like wielding a brush. Which is a very interesting way of looking at, like, how nails are used in the game. Like, swords kind of are the same way as brushing, but you're painting your enemies with blood. Well, with red paint. Yeah, but Grim is a pretty nice guy for somebody who got cursed. He gives you a charm notch for your flame gathering expeditions. Which is pretty nice of him, if I say so myself. A lot of people have weird fan art of Grim. Like, I don't get why. Just because he's a bit thinner and slender than the other bugs doesn't mean he garners the right of getting this weird art. But I guess every fandom must have that one artist on, like, DeviantArt that draws something really weird. But I'm just gonna show, like, each one of the flame bearer fights instead of having like 9 battles on this one video, because I feel like that would add unnecessary fat to this video. And speaking of fat, there's another variant of flame bearers that haven't really hit the gym lately. They're easier to hit, but they do a lot more attacks than the much smaller flame bearers. Like, they'll summon fireballs that spiral around them. And I think he also introduces, like, the penta attack, or like the penta volley, where he just shoots 5 fireballs at once. Grimm's attacks aren't hard to dodge, necessarily. In fact, he has a pretty predictable and rhythmic way of attacking. Whenever Grimm appears from the sky, he will do a downwards dive and then thrust towards where your location is. The best way of countering this attack is to jump and then pogo off of him while he dashes. He can also teleport in the middle, slightly above you, and puff up like a sea urchin and fire projectiles in bullet hell way. The best way to dodge this attack is to run to the left or right wall and jump accordingly. Grimm can also teleport to the ground and summon these red creatures to take a chunk out of you. He summons 3 of these, and they always start downwards and arch upwards. Also, the relative height of where the projectiles are summoned is dependent on how far you are from Grimm. You can counter this attack by dashing towards Grimm after jumping. Wait until the second projectile, since Grimm will teleport away from you, and fire the remaining projectile. Grimm also teleports on the ground near you to slash at you, and then he does an uppercut afterwards. When he reaches a high height, he teleports while summoning fire, which arcs downwards. The best way to dodge this attack is to either dash in the opposite direction when he thrusts at you, or to shadow dash through him when he dashes. Finally, the last attack he uses is a tendril attack, where he teleports in the arena while staying still and injecting tendrils in the ground. Afterwards, the tendrils will erect from the ground and then thrust upwards, impaling you if you're not careful. You just need to either pogo off of Grimm or standing between 2 tendrils. Generally, you want to stay as close to Grimm to do damage to him as much as possible. These flame bearers are really annoying to deal with, especially since they do 2 masks of damage, unlike the other ones that just do 1. All I can say is that I just let the Grim Child just kill him for me, like the final blow. The Grim Child just kills him for me. And that's probably the only good use for the Grim Child. It's really good at sniping stuff you really don't want to deal with. But it only does 11 damage when maxed out. Wow, it's not really that good. Also, this Flame Bearer dives so quickly you cannot, like, hit it with the nail. Like, I'm pretty sure it's possible? And this Flame Bearer adds a new attack to the list of things you have to dodge. A Flame Pillar attack. Which can be annoying to dodge if you're in an enclosed space. But generally, if you strafe to the left or the right, and sort of add some variation to your movements, you should be able to both hit him and avoid the flame pillars. Besides that, he isn't too bad. To actually beat Nightmare King Grim, I do need the Shadow Cloak, or the Shade Cloak. And the only way of getting that is beating the second Hornet fight, and then getting the King's Mark. And then going to the Abyss and getting it. So I'm definitely showing those things out, for sure. No, the second Hornet fight isn't that bad. Basically, you should try to both bum rush her, like, you need to get as much swipes in as soon as possible and just spam, like, either the, horizontal spell attack or the Shade Soul. If you have Shade Soul for this fight, you should win. If you don't, then you're going to have to use some strafing. All of her attacks are the same as the first one, except for she's a little bit faster and she's a whole lot more aggressive this time around. She adds one new attack though, which, like, she sort of waves her nail out, but then it disappears, and then suddenly these balls of spikes appear attached to little things of threads. And you can actually knock those out of the way, but surprisingly enough, they do no damage to her if you manage to hit one at her. So yeah, don't try that. I do have Grim in this part, and I was searching for the other Flame Bearer, but like I said earlier, I'm cutting out all of the other Flame Bearer fights. The only good time to heal against Hornet is whenever she throws her needle at you. That's the only time, like, you're taking a risk if you're doing it without the quick focus charm. Like, I sort of just swipe at her a bunch of times until she's like, I'm done. Yeah. Then you get the King's Mark by traveling through this deceased worm. You know, the things you do in life are, you know, marks. And you get out of there, but the strangest glitch happened after this. Like, the health bar wouldn't appear until after I got onto a bench. It was really strange. I might report that later. But once you get the Mark of the King, you can go back to the Ancient Basin, which will be cut to about now. And you'll find that you can pass the door near the Abyss. Now you need the Shade Soul to beat Nightmare King Grim. If you don't have it, then you're not... I'm sure it could be possible. Like, most of Nightmare King Grim's attacks requires you to have the Shade Soul, or I mean the Shadow Cloak. You're pretty much required by the game to have the Shadow Cloak. So yeah, you have to travel deep into the Abyss. And the Abyss isn't a fun climb back up, that's for certain. I use the descending dive to just go straight down. You'll notice that there's a bunch of Hollow Knight corpses on the ground. And there's a good lore reason for that. You see, either the king had a bunch of babies with the White Lady, or he just casted them in a bunch of, or just used her seed to make a whole bunch of them in a mold. But it's never really stated which happened in the game. But nevertheless, you see a bunch of veiled corpses, which we will be going back to this area far, like, maybe next part. Next part is going to be about how you beat Nightmare King Grim, though. Because a lot of people have trouble with Nightmare King Grim. Like, I'm feeling like making next part just all about Nightmare King Grim. You'll encounter some dangerous enemies in this area. Like, you encounter some shades which do 2 masks of damage. You don't want them contacting you at all. You do not want them to, especially if they combo you. Just gotta be careful. There's a little lighthouse which sort of makes it so the shades can't materialize in the black water, which was pretty nice to have. I think they intended you not to have the crystal heart, though, because you can just sort of crystal heart your way to it, you know? Well, once you get the Shadow Cloak, you're given so much evasion opportunities in the game. Like, I'm not even joking. And being able to pass through enemies without taking damage is so convenient in the game. Like, you wouldn't believe it. Yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't believe how useful it is. So basically, the next little section is going to be... You know what? I'm gonna probably edit that section out. It's just me getting the tram pass. In fact, I'm just gonna make it 4 times faster. The deepness isn't a fun place to be at. And, yeah, I'm just gonna speed that up. It's taking 9 minutes out of the whole playthrough. Just to put it simply, I just get the tram pass. And, like, I get lost in the deep nest all the time. It's filled with a bunch of mazes and corridors and empty places. You'll be, if you're not careful, you'll be stuck there, and you need the lamp in order to get the places. It's kind of sad. You absolutely need the lamp. But there's a reason why I'm showing this part off. Because you need the tram pass in order to get to one of the flame bearers. And I'm gonna actually be showing off one of the fights. Like, I feel like it's kind of important to show off the hive. Like, the only reason why I'm there is to fight that one flame bearer, and that's it. Which is actually kind of sad. But what can you do? Like, once you get the tram pass, you can do a lot of stuff with the trams. I was like, what does this do? And it turns out it's a shortcut. I always find it strange how Zote looks nearly exactly like the knight. That's something that's been a curious endeavor to find out what Zote's point in the story is besides the comic relief character. It's kind of weird. Like, Hollow Knight's comic relief character is this one character is bragging about how he's the best, but he's actually really weak. But I bet if the Pale King sent Grey Prince, though, to beat the Radiants, I'm pretty sure the Radiants would be one-shotted. I actually don't get to the Grey Prince Zote in that. I forgot. Like, you have to do a sequence of events to unlock the Grey Prince Zote Dream Arena. You have to save him from the mosquito in the Green Path. Then you have to free him in the spider web in the Deepness. And then you have to fight in the Colosseum, and the last battle will be this very sad demonstration by Zote, who is the only enemy in the game who does 0 damage. Like, for somebody who claims he's pretty OP, he's pretty weak. But yeah. Like, I mean, Zote's problem is he's a bit too prideful for his own good. Like, if you're prideful, you know, you shouldn't be prideful, but you should at least be able to show off. Like, there's some people who are prideful and they cannot show off nothing. Like, I remember seeing this one, like, video where it was showcasing the best feats that were faked, and this one guy put this, like, image. He was like, oh, this can definitely happen. I did it before, and when he did it in real life, you want to guess what happened? Nothing happened. He tried to recreate something that didn't happen. Like, there's some sad saps who actually do that stuff still in this world today, which I find sad. But, you know, what can you do? Yeah. But the Hive was actually really hidden, and there's actually a good lore reason for that. And that's because they wanted to be sort of neutral to everyone by just hiding in the shadows. And I mean, that's sort of a very negative way to view life, but in a post by one of the Cherry Team devs, he mentioned that the Hive was touched by the infection. Like, everything that bleeds like orange is considered something that's infected, but the bees bleed like yellow. But I guess it's close enough, right? I mean, the husk, the weird husk with the bees and bleed orange. I find those strange. It's like the journal post is like, does he like the bees, or did the bees do something to him? Like, I feel like that would be a sad existence if you had a beehive in you and you were like 300-400 pounds. But you can jump pretty high for something that looks that, you know, fat for an enemy. Like, I don't know. Yeah, but the flame bearer in this area is kind of annoying since you have to kill off all the bees. Like, you know, Nicholas can shut the bees. Yeah, I really love Nicolas Cage movies. What can I do about it? He makes mediocre movies into good movies, which I always find interesting about the Cage. But yeah, once you get all the flames you need, you go to Nightmare King, well, Grim, and then you dream nail him. But that's going to be the next part of this playthrough. Like, I'm probably gonna make the next episode solely devoted to Nightmare King Grim to help out the noobs and the nooblets. Enjoy!